Right, we should be good now. As I say, unfortunately, in trying to sort out the gimbal, solve one problem and create another one straight away. So I'll just wait for you guys to jump onto this stream. Hello, Tricia. We're back. Yeah, all's good. All's good. Yeah, it was me trying to sort the gimbal out, but as soon as I took out the cable, never done that before, it said transmission has stopped. So don't know what happened there. That's a pain in the bum, but I'll just give it another minute, just let people catch up with us, and then we'll go for a walk down the high street. So if you there I am, yeah, I'm back, yeah. So hopefully that wasn't too long. Yes, I'm live, back live. So I say I took the cable out just to reset the gimbal, and as I did so, we lost connectivity. But hopefully back now, and those that haven't been watching, we'll have to watch 3 videos about those things to catch up. But I think we're coming back now. Ah, lovely. So let's give you a sight then of the high street, and the first sign, as you can see here, from 1661. So the street opens up in front of you like a stage, kind of lined with warm Yorkshire stone, shaped by centuries of footsteps. This isn't just a road, it's the spine of Pateley Bridge. It's the place where every thread of the valley's story has passed through at some point. To understand it fully, you kind of have to see it through 2 sets of eyes at once. The Victorian children who walked it daily with wonder and longing, and the generations of shopkeepers, traders, farmers and visitors who shaped its life. The first shop we can see then is the famous sweet shop. Been trading since 1827. Still one of the oldest in England. And to the children of Millfield Lane, this wasn't simply a shop, it was a fairy tale behind glass. After school, they'd press their noses to the window, breath fogging the glass as they stared at the tall jars filled with humbugs, sherbet lemons, pear drops, cinder toffee and licorice twists. Most days had no money, but looking cost nothing. So the shop has seen everything. Victorian children spending a precious halfpenny, soldiers on leave buying sweets for sweethearts, evacuee children in the 1940s tasting their first Yorkshire toffee, and tourists arriving by railway in the 1920s. It's more than a shop. It's a kind of memory machine. Let's kind of head down, because a little bit further down the street here, we've got the site of what was once the Drapers. It's now a cafe. And this is where mothers would come with a few coins wrapped in a handkerchief, hoping to stretch their budget just far enough. Inside, a long wooden counter. Lots of bolts of cloth, ribbons, buttons and threads. Children stood quietly beside their mothers, watching the yardstick slide across the counter, hoping there might be just enough left over for a ribbon or a scrap of bright fabric. Because before ready-made clothes, Pateley Bridge was a town of makers, of seamstresses, tailors, knitters, and women who could turn old garments into new ones. Clothing wasn't bought, it was made, mended, and remade. The old baker's shop, now gift jewellery shop here, was a place of pure temptation. The smell of warm bread drifting up the street, wrapping itself around children like a blanket. And they'd slow their steps, hoping for a broken bun or a misshapen loaf. And for those families on Millfield Lane living on the bread line, bread was rationed very carefully. But the smell belonged, of course, to everyone. And bakers often extended credit to struggling families, donated bread to the poorhouse, and special baked bread was made available. Bread wasn't just food, it was community. A little bit further down here, now a boutique, was the butcher shop. Now selling luxury goods. But most working families couldn't afford meat, except on perhaps a Sunday. And even then it was often the cheaper cuts of meat, scrag end, shin or suet. So children watched the butcher's hands move quickly, expertly, imagining what it must have been like to have a table full of food, imagine what it was like to live in one of the big houses where meat was served every day of the week. And Pateley Bridge has a long tradition of livestock trading. The Niderdale Show, founded in 1895, grew into one of the biggest one-day agricultural shows in the north. Isn't it beautiful? Isn't it such a gorgeous street? So farmers brought prize cattle, sheep and poultry, and the whole valley turned out to watch. Fish and chips indeed. Smells fantastic. So the butcher shop was part of that world. It was the link between farms and families. Let's cross over and just show you. We've got the pub on the other side, the Crown, the King's Head, a little bit further down. Just try to keep us out of the sun here. It's easy to imagine the Victorian children who walked past these doors on Fridays, hoping their fathers would come straight home. Of course, some men didn't, preferring the company inside the pub. Look at that blue sky, isn't that beautiful? To the cocoa and the chocolate. A week's wage could vanish in an evening. Before the railway, these inns were bustling coaching stops full of travellers heading to Ripon, Harrogate and the Dales. The pubs, of course, were places of warmth, gossip, news, and of course, the occasional brawl. The shop coming into view in just a minute was the ironmonger's store. We've got hardware or a pet store. So ironmonger's hardware was essential to daily life. Families brought cracked kettles, bent pans, broken tools, and lanterns that did new wicks. Nothing was thrown away in this society. Everything was repaired. It's how we've kind of fundamentally changed, really, as a society. We've become a disposable culture. But it's something that simply wouldn't have been recognised in the Victorian era. Nothing was thrown away. So Pateley Bridge was full of practical skills. Blacksmiths, wheelwrights, coopers, joiners, farriers, people look after horses. Cute little alleyway over here. And the ironmonger would have supplied all of them. The old post office, which I think is where this butcher's was, just up here, was a place of excitement and dread. A letter could bring joy, sorrow, opportunity, or fear. Children waiting outside while their mothers opened the envelopes with trembling hands. During both World Wars, the post office became the emotional centre of the town. Telegrams brought news no family wanted to receive, but letters also brought hope, stories from soldiers, updates for evacuees, and promises of a return. So very much a double-edged sword, but of course a very different timescale for communications than we expect today. So the curve of the buildings, I think the warmth of the stone, the bustle of the daily life here, it's very, very easy to imagine it in the Victorian era because it is so little changed. We're just passing the site of an old butcher shop over here. Next door to it was a fishmonger's. I believe this one was a fishmonger's. But fish, of course, this far away from the coast was a luxury. So looking at these kind of glistening fish on the slabs of ice, the children would perhaps imagine a sea they'd never actually seen. The cobbler's shop next door, equally important. Children's boots were patched again and again, with cardboard inside to cover the holes. New soles hammered, laces replaced with string. So a good pair of boots could last a childhood if the cobbler was skilled. The general store held everything you could possibly want, from candles and soap, tea, flour and paraffin. And children were sent in with a note and a coin and waited quietly while adults exchanged gossip over the counter. The old spice merchant, which I think is one of these behind us, would have brought really wonderful and kind of exotic smells of cinnamon, nutmeg, tea and dried fruit into the valley. And for children who lived on porridge and bread, these smells were a glimpse into another world. And I'll just give you another image from inside the museum that is of the recreated general store. Isn't that beautiful? So that gives you a kind of sense there. And of course, everything is behind the counter. And it's kind of, there's no kind of self-service, everything's kind of served to you. And then finally, we've got the bank here. Let's get rid of that. With its kind of grand stone facade, a building that belonged to another world. Most families had nothing to save. Some had nothing left by Wednesday. So children walking past it, knowing, even at a young age, that this was a place for other people. People lived in the larger houses of King Street and up the higher end of the valley. So by the early 1900s, the high street had been transformed by tourism. Trains brought day trippers, ramblers, artists, families escaping the city. Shops adapted. Postcards appeared. Cafes opened and souvenir sellers set up stalls. The high street became a place where locals and visitors mingled, and a crossroads for stories. So here at the top of the high street, it's worth remembering that the street has seen medieval markets, it's seen Victorian poverty, it's seen Edwardian tourism, it's seen wartime rationing, it's lived through railway closures, it's seen annual agricultural shows and generations of family. It's the living memory of Pateley Bridge. And now leaving it behind, we begin the final ascent into deeper time, to older stories and the quiet heart of the valley. Are you ready to come up? Do you want to take the car and we'll walk past it in a few minutes. So we're now going to begin our final ascent up the top of the valley. Probably take us 3 or 4 minutes to walk up to the old church. The signal might flicker, but believe me, the signal will come back because it is exceptionally good 4G around here. It's lovely. Yeah, village museums are great, aren't they? It's the old fire station here we're passing. So I'll say, if the signal does flicker a bit, don't worry, stay with us. It won't drop out altogether. It will be back and it will be worth it. So we're walking up now towards, or rather on Old Church Lane. So we've seen the new church, which was built in the 1860s, which is lower towards the bottom of the valley. But now we're going up, and in doing so, we're kind of following the original pattern of settlement in this area, because people originally would have been hill farmers. In the valley bottom, where there was congestion, but rather higher up, where you could claim land, fields, pasture land. So the scattered farms of Nidderdale and the Yorkshire Dales were up on the hillsides. So consequently, the medieval church, the medieval settlement was up here, and that's where we're headed now. So the climb up the old church begins fairly gently, but believe me, it's starting now to take shape. We are coming out of the bottom of the valley, and so much, of course, of landscape in the Victorian era is at the bottom of valleys because it was just so much cheaper to build the railways there. And of course, the railways followed where the roads had been, and the roads followed where often the rivers have been. But you might think, actually, didn't you start off by saying you build by the rivers? And that's true. Wait to drink. But don't forget, on the way up, so where these farms were located at the top of the valleys, there was a ready source of water. There's no shortage of water. So that wasn't a problem. What there was the space to farm. So if I just kind of turn around, you start to get a sense of the town is running away from behind us. No brick here whatsoever, none. All built of local stone. I don't think you get planning permission to build with brick here. It's just not part of the vibe. So the river becomes a sort of thin silver thread, some streams up here. And the air takes on that unmistakable hillside clarity. Crisp, Mrs. John says. You feel you're not just stepping upwards, but you're going backwards through time. As the last of the buildings we're going to see, it starts to take on the sense of a little country lane, very narrow. So say if the signal dips out here for a couple of minutes, just stay with it, it'll come back, because up at the top the signal is great. We've got some high walled sides over here, a long unbroken line. So say if the signal varies a little bit, might need the brolly. The rain is starting to come back. It's a rise. You can probably hear I'm getting slightly out of breath. The dry stone, the landscape kind of opens out, and we return to dry stone walls that run like stitching across the hillside. So we look at these stones. We should be all right. Can I get the brolly? Huh? You need what? Sorry about that. Yeah, you shouldn't lose me. I say we might get a little bit of sticky signal. So yeah, each one of these stones has been placed by hand. The stone it can do, yeah. We're just out really of Pateley Bridge, and it really does feel like suddenly we're in the midst of the country. Mrs. John valiantly behind us. He's just dying, struggling with her bad knee. So do remember, if you leave me a tip, I promise I'll buy Mrs. John something nice on the way home to reward her for her endeavour. Some alcoholic pain relief. There you go. So if you want to set up the Mrs. John Alcoholic Pain Relief Fund, that would be most appreciated. So this is now a place obviously where, as you can probably tell, the noise of the modern world is fading away. Really all you can hear is my puffing and panting, indicating I'm not in the best shape of my life, but doing my level best. And yeah, nice glass of wine for Mrs. John. But as we're coming up the hill here, it's getting replaced by something older, quieter, and indeed deeper. Because at the rise, the top of this hill, we've got the original church. Just hoping we can get up there in one piece. And it's a couple of minutes walk from here, so hopefully the signal is holding out, but we've now got to contend with the wind and the rain, what we go through to bring you these tours, honestly. But it will, I promise you, be worth it. I'm saying that as much to your good selves as I am to Mrs. John. Dry stone walls in front. Yes, well, they were certainly used Napoleonic soldiers to build the fort. I wasn't aware it was an idea that came from France, but it may well be correct. But you're absolutely right. The Napoleonic prisoners of war were used extensively in the building of dry stone walls in Yorkshire, in the Yorkshire Dales. Particularly around the Hawes area, there was a large encampment of prisoners up there. So a good spot, but I wasn't aware that that was actually where they came from. But that's really interesting. But it's a fascinating craft because it's all about stone selection. At the end of the day, it's you have to pick stones that go together. It's still there. Years later, we're losing the... It's now the wet weather is setting in, but we're not far away from our final destination. But the gimbal is a little gate you can just maybe see coming up. Those that have got good eyes. I know exactly where I am, Leslie. I'm just, I've lost the gimbal. The gimbal is completely stopped. But last time I switched the gimbal off, obviously we lost it completely, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do it by hand, and we're going to do. So this will come into the location now of the original church. Place where people were baptised, they married here, and they were buried here. The walls that remain are thick and weathered, softened by moss and lichen, as though the hillside has slowly reclaimed them. So we're going to make our way into the church. I apologise that we're getting a bit wobbly cam. I'm now trying to use all 16 arms that I've got to keep the phone steady, to hold the umbrella, and to keep everything moving. And trying to keep an eye on Mrs. John as well, who's a bit behind me, I'll say, suffering from a bad knee, so it's not ideal for her, but hopefully we can just get through it. So what's incredible about this church is this is the ruined church of Pateley Bridge. And there's no roof, as you're about to see. We've got walls, we've got windows, we've got everything, but we don't have is a roof. Or a gimbal. Two things we don't have. We don't have a roof, we don't have a gimbal. What we do have is, sorry about this shakiness. It's really annoying because this is obviously such a great location to be, but I'm so scared now to turn the gimbal on. I'll try one more time to turn the gimbal on, but I think we've lost it. Come on. That's it. Oh, it's back. We have ruins. Yeah, I see we've got ruins. Yeah. So you can imagine, of course, the Victorian children we've spoken about a lot would have come from the villages below to play. Yeah, to play in the ruins. Just leave it there. It's fine. They climbed, no doubt, the low walls, darted between the gravestones, played hide and seek in the long grass, and of course, in this ruins. They'd chase each other through the broken doorways. They treated the place with a kind of casual familiarity of childhood. A place to explore, to laugh, to invent stories. They probably would have barely noticed the gravestones around them. Most of them, of course, too weathered to be read. But one grave did catch their eye. A solitary stone, older than the rest. Its inscription faint, but it's still legible. They wouldn't know the name of the person whose name was carved there. They wouldn't know the story. They only sensed, really, that whoever lay beneath it belonged to another world entirely. Someone born almost 200 years earlier. They'd perhaps pause for a moment, puzzled, then run off again, leaving the mystery behind them. It's around here somewhere, isn't it? Just looking for it. It was opposite. Oh, there it is. Is it this one? There it is. Right. So this is the grave, however. Fantastic. And get this. Okay. Let's read this together. Mary Myers of Northwoods departed this life on Friday, the 20th day of September in the year 1743, aged 120 years old, or thereabouts. 120 years old, and died in 1743. So if you were to believe this, she was born in 1623. It's an astonishing age even today. In the 18th century, it was almost unimaginable. Mary Myers lived her entire life in a valley that was still medieval in character. A world of small farms, of pack horse tracks, hand-cut fields, and deep rural silence. She died long before the mills, the railway, the shops, the crowds and the noise, long before the Victorian children who played amongst these ruins, long before the modern town that now fills the valley below. She never saw any of it. Mary Myers lived and died in that older space, unaware of a world that would one day grow beneath her. And yet here she remains, in the older world behind you, in the older silence of the hillside. Her grave becomes a bridge between centuries, between the medieval valley she knew and the Victorian children who played around her stone, and you standing here now. From the churchyard, the view stretches across the whole of Nidderdale. The river winds through the valley floor, the high street curves gently below, and the hills rise in soft layers towards the moors. And it's a view that Mary Myers would have recognised, even as everything else changed. The valley she knew is still here, beneath the surface of the modern world. And as we stand here, it's worth remembering something else. When these Victorian children played in the ruins, climbing walls, chasing one another through the grass, they probably wished they didn't have to go to school. Lessons felt long, the schoolmaster was strict, and the climb up the hill must have seemed endless. But Mary Myers never had that choice. She was born into an earlier world, a world where education simply wasn't an option for the children of Pateley Bridge. Her life began in a valley of small farms, of packhorse tracks, long before schools, railways or industry. She never learned to read or write in a classroom. She never sat behind a wooden desk. She never carried a slate on a board up a hill. And yet imagine how much she must have learned in the 120 years she lived. She learned the seasons of the valleys, the moods of the river, the rhythm of the land. She learned the stories of her neighbours, the patterns of weather, the quiet wisdom of a life lived close to the earth. She saw generations born and buried. She watched the world shift around her and carried a lifetime of knowledge that no school could ever teach. So here then, at her grave, the story comes full circle. The children who played here belonged to a world shaped by education and opportunity. Mary belonged to a world shaped by experience and endurance. And you, standing here now, bridge those worlds. Looking down on the modern town and back again into the deep past that still whispers from the hillside. It's a reminder that every life, whether schooled or unschooled, leaves its mark on the valley. And that's the stories we carry, learned, lived or inherited. And it's what keeps places like this alive. So there we go, Pateley Bridge in 3 sections, annoyingly, because of signals, weather and problems. But I do hope you've enjoyed our time together in this, well, I think it's quite a fabulous space where I've never been before, and only now possible because they put up a fantastic 5G mast not far away from here. So all the time new bits of Yorkshire opening up, new places we can go to and travel to together. As you can imagine, today's been a bit of a long journey, a long day, and a lot of work putting it all together. So those that have been able to help and support this, it's much appreciated, it's necessary. But it's not expected, it's not required, but those that can and are able to, it is very much appreciated. I thank you for it. And let's have one last scan around the church, and then we'll let you go. I'm glad you've enjoyed it, Tish. So the abandoned church of St Mary, the Virgin, here at Pateley Bridge in Nidderdale, and we are on the edge of the Yorkshire Dales National Park. What a spot to bring you. Hello, David. I didn't know you were on. David is a man of this part, so I don't know if you've been to Pateley Bridge before. Lovely, great. I enjoyed having you with me. So I'm going to say goodbye, and always so much. That's nice to read. And Mrs. John is parked somewhere around, having a well-earned break. So she says goodbye as well. So thank you, everybody, and Diane. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on here. what a location we've got. But I'm ready to put this blasted gimbal down and stop having my chin tickled by this here dead cat. So thank you, everybody, and I'll see you very, very soon. Thank you, Leslie, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.